The Xylar Collective prided itself on neutrality. In the complex dance of galactic politics, they were neither predators nor prey, but careful observers who maintained diplomatic ties with all major powers. This was why Lyra, a junior analyst from their diplomatic corps, found herself aboard Nexus Station as part of the quarterly Galactic Trade Summit. The station's grand hall buzzed with the usual bureaucratic energy. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations mingled in an atmosphere of forced cordiality, their true intentions hidden behind practiced smiles and formal greetings. Lyra observed it all from her position at the Xylar delegation table, cataloging interactions and power dynamics as she had been trained to do. First time at one of these, isn't it? The voice belonged to Senior Analyst Talon, her direct superior. His four eyes blinked in their characteristic pattern that conveyed mild amusement. Yes, Lyra admitted. It's more subdued than I expected. Talon made a clicking sound that passed for laughter among the Xylar. The real negotiations happen in private chambers. This is merely theater, each species performing their expected roles. He gestured toward the Cathar delegation. Tall, reptilian beings with chitinous armor and imperious bearing. The Cathar Empire plays the part of the intimidating military power. His attention shifted to a group of small, six-limbed creatures. The trade guilds posture as pragmatic merchants above petty politics. Finally, he indicated several ancient-looking beings with translucent skin, and the Venerians maintain their facade of wise, judicious elders. What about the Terrans? Lyra asked, scanning the room for the human delegation. Talon's outer membrane rippled, a sign of unease. They send only a minimal presence to such gatherings. Humans prefer direct action to lengthy debate. Before Lyra could inquire further, a commotion near the communication hub drew everyone's attention. A junior Cathar official was engaged in heated discussion with their ambassador, Zathkor. Information tablets were being passed between them with increasing urgency. The news spread through the hall like a shockwave. A human explorer has been killed in Sector 7G. Talon translated from the rapidly updating information feeds. Apparently during a resource raid by Cathar privateers. Privateers, Lyra questioned. Officially unaffiliated ships that operate at the fringes of Cathar space. Unofficial imperial policy allows them considerable freedom to secure resources as long as a percentage flows back to the Empire. Ambassador Zathkor moved to the central podium with practiced dignity. His voice amplified throughout the hall. The Cathar Empire wishes to address the unfortunate incident in the asteroid belt of Sector 7G. We have received reports that a solitary human researcher may have been caught in an unsanctioned privateering operation. While regrettable, these criminal elements operate beyond imperial control in frontier regions. We extend our condolences to the Terran Alliance and offer our cooperation in a thorough investigation, which may take several standard months to complete. The reaction from the assembled delegations was muted, a few murmurs of concern, some sympathetic gestures toward the small Terran contingent. The humans themselves remained expressionless, their ambassador rising only to state, "We shall convey this information to Terra. The summit may proceed with scheduled activities." Lyra felt a strange unease. "That seems understated," she whispered to Talon. The senior analyst's membrane rippled again. "Remember the stories I told you? About the Proxima Doctrine?" Lyra had thought those were exaggerations, cautionary tales told to junior diplomats. "Surely that was propaganda?" "Let's hope so," Talon replied. "The victim has been identified as Dr. Eris Thorn, a solitary researcher, apparently of no political significance." The summit continued. Trade discussions resumed. 3 standard hours passed. Then everything changed. The Terran delegation disappeared from the summit without announcement. In their place, a single message was broadcast to all communication channels throughout the station. The Terran Alliance demands the immediate surrender of the privateer vessel Voidclaw and all crew members involved in the attack on Dr. Eris Thorn, along with any Imperial officials who sanction the operation. You have 3 standard hours to comply. The Cathar ambassador returned to the podium, mandibles flaring in obvious indignation. This is an outrageous violation of diplomatic protocol and sovereign Cthar rights. The Empire cannot be held responsible for criminal elements. We have already initiated an investigation process which, per interstellar norms, requires proper evidence gathering, jurisdictional clearances, and... He was interrupted by a station-wide alert. The massive view screens around the hall switched to external feeds showing multiple spatial distortions forming at the edge of the station's sensor range. Terran vessels emerging from FTL, announced the station's AI. Identification confirms Third Fleet elements. 63 warships now in formation. The hall erupted in chaos. Impossible, hissed a Venerian elder near Lyra. The nearest Terran military installation is 14 light-years distant. No species can mobilize a fleet that quickly. Lyra turned to Talon, whose coloration had paled significantly. Is that the Third Fleet? He confirmed quietly. Specialized in planetary assault operations. They're not supposed to be anywhere near this sector. He checked his information terminal. Reports indicate they're now on direct course to the Cthar border system where that privateer vessel is based. Their estimated arrival matches exactly the 3-hour deadline. The implications were staggering. Either the humans had ships capable of faster-than-light travel far beyond what was thought possible, or, more disturbingly, they had already positioned this fleet before the incident occurred. I need to understand what's happening, Lyra said, moving away from the Xylar delegation toward a secluded communication alcove. There, she found Carrick, an information broker from the Meridian Cluster whom she had cultivated as a source during her preparation for the summit. You picked a fascinating time to attend your first summit. The small, gray-skinned being noted, compound eyes gleaming with a mixture of fear and excitement. Tell me about the Proxima Doctrine, Lyra demanded. Carrick glanced around nervously. It's not a formal doctrine, more an observed pattern. When humans first emerged into the galactic community, the Braxis hegemony decided to test their resolve by raiding an outlying colony. Standard intimidation tactics, nothing unusual. And the humans didn't follow protocol. No formal complaints filed, no appeals to the Galactic Council. Within 20 hours, every Braxis vessel involved in the raid had been destroyed. Within 40 hours, the military base that launched them was reduced to molten slag. No warning, no negotiations. Lyra's inner membranes contracted in shock. That's disproportionate force by any standard. That's humans, Carrick replied simply. The pattern repeated 3 more times with different powers who underestimated them. The message became clear. Harm any human, military or civilian, and expect swift, overwhelming retribution. But one researcher? In an unauthorized raid? Carrick's voice dropped lower. You don't understand. To humans, there is no concept of an unimportant civilian. Their social structure doesn't recognize expendable individuals. The station shuddered slightly as several Cthar vessels departed in haste. On the main screens, tactical displays showed the Third Fleet maintaining perfect formation as it approached Cthar space, now less than 2 hours away. The logistics of this are impossible, Lyra insisted. No species can project military power this quickly across such distances. Carrick made a gesture equivalent to a shrug. There are rumors that humans maintain what they call rapid response postures throughout known space. Fleets positioned strategically, disguised as training exercises or exploration missions, ready to converge on any threat within hours. That would be ruinously expensive to maintain. Indeed, most species optimize for efficiency. Humans optimize for certainty. When Lyra returned to the main hall, the atmosphere had transformed from diplomatic tedium to barely contained panic. The Cthar delegation was engaged in frantic communication with their homeworld. Other species were hastily forming discussion groups, calculating how this confrontation might affect their own interests. Lyra's information terminal chimed with an update that sent shivers through her body. The Terran Third Fleet had arrived at the Cthar border system, 30 minutes ahead of schedule. The main view screens switched to a live transmission. An imposing human female in a crisp uniform stood on what appeared to be the command deck of a massive warship. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, her expression utterly calm. "I am Admiral Eva Rostova of the Terran Alliance Third Fleet. We have established a complete blockade of the Torval system. No vessels may enter or leave without explicit authorization. To the Cthar High Command, we have transmitted comprehensive evidence of your regional governor's involvement in sanctioning the privateer operation that resulted in the death of Dr. Aristhorn. We require the immediate surrender of the vessel Void Claw, all crew members involved in the attack, and Governor Zexgaltar. You have 1 standard hour to comply, or we will commence system pacification procedures." The transmission ended. The Cthar ambassador's composure finally shattered. "This is an act of war," he roared. "The Empire will not be dictated to by a species barely a century into space travel." But Lyra noticed something telling. Despite his public bluster, the ambassador's aides were frantically working their communication devices. The Cthar military, formidable by any standard, was being mobilized, but there was a desperation to their movements that belied their reputation for strategic confidence. "They're afraid," she whispered to Talon, who had joined her. "With good reason," he replied. "The term system pacification is a Terran military euphemism. The last time they employed it against the Orion cartels, 3 inhabited moons were rendered temporarily uninhabitable. Around them, the other delegations were beginning to take obvious sides. The trade guild's representatives were conspicuously moving away from the Cthar, while species with known Terran alliances maintained carefully neutral expressions that failed to hide their satisfaction. "We should be evacuating the station," said a nervous Venerian elder to anyone who would listen. "If this escalates." "It won't," stated a calm voice. Lyra turned to see a human, the first she'd encountered directly. He was unremarkable in appearance. Average height, light brown skin, wearing civilian attire rather than a diplomatic uniform. "And you are?" asked Talon. "Daniel Reyes, Terran Cultural Liaison," the human replied with a slight bow. "I can assure you that fleet operations are precisely targeted. Nexus Station is in no danger." "Your certainty is either admirable or terrifying," Lyra said. The human smiled slightly. "We prefer predictable outcomes, MS. Lyra of Xyler. Your civilization values the same, does it not?" Before she could respond, the station's communication system activated again. This time, it was the voice of the Cthar High Command itself, a rare occurrence that immediately silenced the hall. "The Cthar Empire acknowledges receipt of Terran evidence regarding the unauthorized actions of Governor Zexgaltar. We denounce these rogue elements who have acted without Imperial sanction. To preserve the peace, we will surrender the Void Claw vessel, its crew, and Governor Zexgaltar to Terran custody. We further offer reparations for this tragic incident and reaffirm our commitment to preventing such transgressions in future." The submission was total and immediate, something unprecedented in Cthar diplomatic history. Their ambassador was immediately recalled, departing the station in visible disgrace. Tactical displays showed Terran dropships descending to the Cthar outpost on Torval's third moon. The operation was executed with surgical precision. No weapons fired, no resistance encountered. Within 30 minutes, the privateer crew and the Cthar governor were in custody aboard the Terran flagship. "How is this possible?" Lyra asked the human liaison who had remained nearby. "The Cthar never capitulate this quickly." Daniel Reyes gestured toward a quieter corner of the hall where they could speak more privately. "The evidence we provided was incontrovertible. Quantum encrypted communications between Governor Zexgaltar and the Void Claw captain, detailing the expected mineral wealth from Dr. Thorne's asteroid claim and the percentage that would flow to the governor's personal accounts." "That's not what I meant," Lyra pressed. "The Cthar Empire has faced evidence of corruption before. They typically deny, delay, and outlast their accusers." "Ah," Reyes nodded understanding. "Perhaps I should provide context for those unaccustomed to Terran response protocols." By now, several other delegates had drifted over, clearly eager to understand the situation. The human seemed unbothered by the expanded audience. Dr. Eris Thorne was a xenogeologist surveying unclaimed asteroids in Sector 7G for potential colonization. His work was routine, his security clearance basic. He was, by most metrics, an ordinary citizen. Then why? Began a Venerian elder. Because there are no unimportant humans, Reyes stated simply. This is fundamental to understanding Terran policy. Every human life carries equal intrinsic value, and an attack on any citizen triggers the same response protocol. But the resources required for such a response, objected a trade guild representative. The logistics alone would be prohibitive by your standards, yes, Reyes acknowledged. We accept the cost as necessary. As for the rapid deployment that seems to have caused such consternation, I should clarify that the Third Fleet was already conducting extended readiness exercises in neighboring sectors. Their proximity was convenient. The thinly veiled implication wasn't lost on anyone present. The Terrans maintained combat-ready fleets in strategic positions throughout known space, prepared to respond to any threat within hours rather than the days or weeks that other civilizations required to mobilize comparable forces. We're expecting something like this to happen, Lyra realized. Reyes neither confirmed nor denied. We prepare for contingencies. The human excused himself to coordinate with the Third Fleet, leaving the assembled delegates to process the implications. Lyra returned to the Xyler delegation, finding Talon already preparing departure arrangements. The summit has been officially suspended, he informed her. The collective has instructed us to return immediately and provide a comprehensive analysis of these events. What will you recommend? Lyra asked. Talon hesitated, his membrane patterns revealing deep concern. I'm uncertain. The Xyler have maintained neutrality for generations, but neutrality assumes balanced powers. Lyra completed his thought. And the Terrans have just demonstrated a capability and willingness that upends those assumptions. The journey back to Xyler Prime gave Lyra time to organize her thoughts and prepare her report. The Collective's Diplomatic Council would expect a thorough assessment and clear recommendations. As she reviewed the station's footage and compiled witness accounts, patterns emerged that both fascinated and disturbed her. The Terran response hadn't just been about punishing the guilty. It had been a carefully orchestrated demonstration, a message to the entire galactic community. The overwhelming force, the precisely calibrated deadline, the flawless execution, all designed to reinforce a single principle: harm any human, face immediate consequences. What troubled her most wasn't the military capability, impressive though it was. It was the unwavering moral certainty behind it. Most species developed ethical flexibility as they expanded into space, recognizing the need for compromise in a diverse galaxy. The humans seemed to have done the opposite, codifying their values into absolute principles and building their entire interstellar policy around enforcing them. When she presented her findings to the Diplomatic Council, the chamber fell into uneasy silence. Your assessment, Analyst Lyra, prompted Elder Coordinator Nix. The incident confirms patterns previously dismissed as exaggeration, she began carefully. Terran military response capabilities exceed all current models. More significantly, their decision-making process operates on fundamentally different principles than those of established galactic powers. Elaborate, commanded Nix. Where other species calculate proportional responses based on strategic value, the Terrans assign equal worth to each citizen regardless of status. This creates a deterrence model where even minor aggressions against seemingly unimportant individuals trigger maximum response. Irrational, commented another council member. No civilization can sustain such policies long-term. With respect, Lyra countered, the evidence suggests otherwise. What appears irrational may be a different form of rationality, one based on absolute values rather than cost-benefit analysis. The debate continued for hours, but eventually, the council reached its decision. The Xyler Collective would pursue closer diplomatic ties with the Terran Alliance while maintaining their traditional neutrality with other powers. You will lead this initiative, Elder Coordinator Nix informed Lyra. Your first-hand experience makes you uniquely qualified. 2 standard months later, Lyra found herself on Earth, the human homeworld, attending a small ceremony in a quiet garden. A simple monument had been erected, a stone marker with the name Dr. Eris Thorne and the dates of his birth and death. To her surprise, Admiral Rostova was present, as were several high-ranking officials from the Terran diplomatic corps. They stood in respectful silence as a woman who appeared to be Thorne's sister placed flowers at the base of the monument. "I don't understand," Lyra confided to Daniel Reyes, who had become her liaison for Terran cultural matters. Dr. Thorne was not a military hero or political figure. Why such attention from your highest levels of leadership? Reyes considered her question carefully. This may be difficult to translate across cultures, but I'll try. In human society, value isn't assigned based on utility or status. It's inherent, unalienable. Dr. Thorne wasn't important because of his position. He was important because he was human, and that justifies positioning a battle fleet near Cthar space, risking interstellar war. From our perspective, the Cthar risked war when they allowed their privateers to kill a human civilian, Reyes replied. The Third Fleet simply ensured they understood the consequences. As the ceremony concluded, Lyra watched Admiral Rostova speak quietly with Thorne's sister, not as a military commander to a civilian, but as one equal to another, sharing a moment of genuine grief. In that moment, Lyra finally began to comprehend what made humans so different and so dangerous. It wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their unshakable belief in the value of each individual life and their absolute commitment to defending that principle. In a galaxy accustomed to calculating worth based on utility, humans stood apart. The galaxy had indeed received another harsh lesson. To humans, there were no insignificant lives, no acceptable losses. Each citizen carried the full weight and protection of their civilization, regardless of status or circumstance. It was a concept both noble and terrifying in its implications. As Lyra prepared her next report to the collective, she knew with certainty that the galaxy's political landscape had fundamentally changed. The Cthar Empire was facing internal turmoil, their reputation severely damaged. Other powers were reassessing their positions, quietly distancing themselves from any policies that might antagonize the Terrans. And in the vast darkness between stars, human fleets continued their exercises, poised to respond to any threat against even the most seemingly insignificant human life with the full might of the Terran Alliance. The Proxima Doctrine wasn't propaganda after all. It was a promise.